I didn't really think about God that much. I went to Mass. I did everything that my parents asked me out of my love for them, but not for love of Him. I didn't really see God as a person. Definitely didn't think about His love for me. He just was something on my checklist. And so because of that, I lived under this illusion that I was self-sufficient.
People often wonder who we are. Why do we dress this way? What do we do all day? Why do we live this kind of life? What does it mean to be a sister, a priest, a Catholic? We want to help you navigate life through faith to find the truth of God and all His glory, because the truth shall set you free.
Welcome back to Go LE Digital and to our podcast series on vocations, The Truth Shall Set You Free. And so today I am so delighted to have a sister here whose story is so beautiful, and she has a special gifted way, I think, Sister Gianna Marie, of telling her story. So rather than taking more time with some multitudinous thoughts you see that fill this brain and this heart, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you were born, and about your very beautiful family.
Of course. And sister, thank you so much for having me. This is a great joy. And I found that whenever you share your vocation story, it deepens your love for your vocation. And it always just renews me in my gratitude for the vocation, for my family, and for the community. So thank you.
Beautiful, sister.
So I was born in beautiful California, in Santa Rosa, which is more northern, to two parents who were at the time just very uncatechized, very loving, but uncatechized. And they, ironically enough, ended up moving to Steubenville, Ohio, which is kind of a strange thing to do, especially when you don't realize that the school that my dad's from California, why would you do such a thing? But my dad really wanted to get a good theology degree, ironically enough, even though he wasn't catechized. And so they ended up at this little unknown school called Franciscan University.
Yes, right.
And my dad went on to be part of the first class that Barbara Morgan started with catechesis. So she had been invited to Franciscan, and my dad was part of that first class to start the catechetical program.
Oh, how beautiful.
And that event, sister, was an explosion on both my parents' marriage, on our family, and then on me, because my parents decided, like, we need to do this differently. You know, we've been living in ignorance, and we weren't living the faith fully. We didn't love it. We didn't know it. And so I look back and I lived a childhood that almost at first glance looks like it could be in a saint book. But then when you dig closer, you realize that there were just as many scrapes and trips to the ER and full of trauma and sorrow, but also lots of joy. So I'm the oldest of 8. And 5 brothers. Had 4 when I first entered the convent, but now 5. 5 brothers and 2 sisters. And I was lucky, sister, that I encountered religious life really young. We moved to South Dakota after Dad finished up in Franciscan, and I met the Carmelites. And funny enough, at the age of 8, I met them, and I thought, I want to be another Saint Therese, and I don't really like boys anyway. I had 4 brothers, remember? And I thought, boys are slobs, and they're teases, and why get married? So at the very wise age of 8, I decided I'd be another Therese, and wanted to be a Carmelite. But again, like, beautiful, beautiful vocation, but wrong reason. And I was also 8. You have to give me a break. So around this time as well, our good friend, now Sister Elizabeth Ann, who is a sister in this community, she entered in Ann Arbor, and I went to her first vows. And I remember sitting there. I was a little older, a little wiser, and I thought, gosh, the Dominicans are really beautiful too. And, you know, I have to wear the habit for my whole life. So the Dominican habit's a little more beautiful than the Carmelite habit. I'm not so sure that I'm choosing the right one. And still wrong reasons. Still thought, you know, boys were just, you know, jerks. So I thought, well, I'll sort that out. You know, I'll sort that out when I'm older. So I had on my plate, you know, Carmelite or maybe Dominican, Sister of Mary. So fast forward a little bit, that was definitely just a phase. And I got very interested in boys. I started to just throw myself into everything that I thought would make me happy. I was so loved and so supported by my parents, had an incredible upbringing in the faith, but I just wasn't satisfied. I kept thinking, I want more love. I want more affirmation. And the biggest thing that I was obsessed with was beauty. Oh. I wanted to be beautiful. I wanted to surround myself in beauty. And so I became obsessed with like my hair, with my clothes, with like learning to play the piano beautifully. If I could, I would have been a ballerina, but flat feet. Oh, well. And so I just was immersing myself in beauty. And around this time too, although I was very much a faithful and obedient child, I didn't really think about God that much. I kind of had in the back of my mind that he was sort of something on my checklist, and that I went to mass, I did everything that my parents asked me out of my love for them, but not for love of him. I didn't really see God as a person, definitely didn't think about his love for me. He just was something on my checklist. And so because of that, I lived under this illusion that I was self-sufficient. This was shattered completely when I was a freshman because my mom had a brain aneurysm. And I realized that nothing is in my control, nothing is in my power, and that my life, my mom's life, are very, very fragile. And it was earth-shattering and very, very difficult. And I just did a lot of crying out to the Lord that was actually genuine and saying, I realize that you are in control of my life, of my mom's life. Please don't take her away. And that prayer was answered. God did give her back to us. So then I just went through this honeymoon period of great gratitude and love. And kind of in the back of my mind, I thought, I probably should listen to the creator of the universe, and that I really don't have control. Mom's experience taught me this. And for a period of time I tried, didn't work out very well. Oldest child, you boss people around, it's in your blood. So I slipped, sister, really quickly back into everything and was miserable for it. We moved again shortly after my freshman year of high school, after mom's aneurysm. So we were back in California. I was at square one again with friends, and became very immersed in that Catholic culture, the really just California culture of all about the outside. It's all about what you show to the world. And so my mom picked up on my just restlessness, my lack of peace, because I was deeply, deeply unhappy and had absolutely no peace. And she said, you're trying to figure out colleges. Why don't you go to a retreat to figure out, what God wants of you? God wants of you. I know. Yes. And I was like, well, you're talking about this discernment retreat in Ann Arbor with Sister Elizabeth Ann's community.
Good for
and
her.
I don't want to be a sister. That was some long past phase when I was little and silly. And, I'm going to marry my Mr. Darcy. We're going to have great kids. We're going to have a gorgeous house. I'm going to have the cutest clothes. I don't want to be a sister, Mom. And in her wisdom, she was unruffled by my protestations. And she's like, discernment retreats don't have to just be about a religious vocation. A discernment retreat means that you go before the Lord and ask him what he wants of you. And it could be a sister or it could be a mom. And she says, these sisters, they're not going to rope you into something. They're definitely not going to force you. Just go with an open heart and ask him what college he wants you to go to. Because I was really torn between two vastly different colleges. And so I was like, okay, whatever. I'm desperate at this point. I'll listen to Mom. I'll go be with the sisters. Okay, whatever. And so, sister, I remember distinctly landing in Detroit and two sisters coming out of the big white van. And you have to remember, I've seen sisters before. In some sisters' vocation stories, when they come on a retreat, it's their first time ever seeing a sister in the full habit. I'd seen sisters in the habit. It was not a shock. And yet it was. Because I was enveloped with this peace and this joy, and I felt so at home with them. I felt completely myself. I didn't feel like I had to be somebody who I wasn't. And, for a high schooler, that's quite shocking.
Yes.
And the more I was with the sisters, I just felt so at home, so at peace. But the practical side of me was like, oh, this is just a phase. This is just a ghost of when you were a little girl and you wanted to be a nun. Remember how silly that was. And so I just kept pushing it away. So shortly before praying Vespers with the sisters, confession was available.
Oh.
And for the first time, sister, I grew up going to regular confession, but for the first time, I was really honest. And I saw so clearly that I believed I was self-sufficient and that I was miserable. And I was very honest with the priest and said, I'm trying to be God, but I'm not. And he spoke just beautiful, loving words about how God, in his infinite mercy and patience, still loved me, and that I need to just go before him with empty hands and an open heart. So I went to the chapel after that confession and cried a lot and was just perfectly open. And, God sometimes works where one grace so quickly then follows another grace. And so we knelt down after Vespers to pray the first joyful mystery. I'll never forget that rosary. And God knew that I have a thick head, and I kept thinking everything was a phase, so he just literally hit me with a spiritual 2x4. And I was so overwhelmed, sister, with peace and with joy that I couldn't doubt it anymore. I was supposed to be a sister.
Beautiful.
And God had been infinitely patient with me and also merciful, because he could have let me, live my life, go to college, still work through all of this distress, this lack of peace. But in his mercy, he acted at that moment.
Beautiful. So you entered at...
I entered after high school.
And sister, for our viewers, since we're going to wrap this up, who come from a world that so often says that would be too young to know, what would you say? As I know what I would say as vocation director with if an 18-year-old wanted to enter, and what I saw in you, what would you say is like a prime aspect of one's prayer life and character at that point, that they would be able to know something that
I think firstly,
the
peace, sister, the peace was unshakable. All of my previous phases, if you will, faded. But I went home, sister, and the peace was unshakable. Things came up. My mom found out she was pregnant.
Yes.
So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm abandoning her. But through all of that, sister, there was a rock-like peace.
Beautiful.
So that's, I think, the primary thing that I would say.
Sister, that is absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And there's a peace and a joy that with which you give your vocation story.
Thank you.
That our viewers have certainly been able to experience and to see in you as well. So I really want to thank you, sister. It's beautiful, and you do have a beautiful family.
I do.
And we'll see about your little sister who your mom was pregnant with when you entered.
Yes.
And I remember that struggle, and yet you gave that gift so beautifully.
Yes.
Knowing you would not be there when she was born, and you would see her when she came to visit with the family.
Yep.
And your willingness to give that, which I think is a very special grace. And I was proud of you then. I'm still proud of you now. So God bless you, sister. And thank you all for tuning in. And I'm so happy that you get to know our sister, Gianna Marie, as well. Isn't she beautiful? God bless you all.